This video is part of my house rules set of videos. Welcome to Mother Russia's Katyusha rocket trucks. The Katyusha, also known as the Stalin Orgel, due to the terrifying sound that they made on the battlefield. The caliber was from 82 to 300 millimeter, and the range from 1900 to 11,800 meters. These were novel and terrifying direct artillery weapons. They were used in a massed, intense fire attack with their three primary aspects. There was mobility, high payload of delivery, and a rapid disperse from counter-artillery. Fire and get the hell out of there. I will have a PDF available in my pinned comments for anyone to download. The rules are simple, and the PDF should clarify any questions you may have with regards to how they work. For game mechanic purposes, the Katyusha is not only a cool historically common unit for Soviets in World War II, it also fixes a problem in Global 40 with regards to the Eastern Front attrition rate. For those of you unfamiliar with the issue, let me explain by this example. It's common for the Russian player to make a poor choice and give a later advantage to the German player. The Russian player does this by increasing the territories with single unit blockers for the German player to attack, only looking at the now and not considering the later ramifications. You can see in Karelia, Vyborg, Baltic states, Eastern Poland, and down here in Bessarabia. That's the 5 territories in the example. So the idea is that the German player has to spread his forces to attack all of the zones, which can then be counterattacked by the waiting Soviet forces, as you can see stockpiled in Ukraine and Belarus. Now, this is a critically false assumption. In this example, Russia is defending across 5 territories with a single token defender. Now, Germany is going to be attacking these territories with a small token force that is just enough to take the territory without risking too many units, and especially not risking his very valuable armor units in these territory takeovers. Now, let's critically analyze this choice by Russia. Well, it's a poor choice by Russia. Let's critically analyze it. So what we can see very clearly is that Russia has decided that they are going to give up 5 infantry. Now, statistically, Germany is only going to lose 1.6 infantry, because that's 0.3 defense, 0.3 defense, 0.3, 0.3, 0.3. When you add that up, it's 1.6 defense. So it's 1.6 infantry loss by Germany versus the 5 by Russia. Now that is more than double the rate of the unit losses. Now Germany is in this scenario sending 10 units. So they will be defending 5 of the territories with 8 units. So now on the Russian counter, they have to have just enough forces coming out of Belarus and Ukraine in order to take back these territories. Now, they won't be taking all 5 territories, because that would be requiring them to have at least 16 units to overtake the 8 units that would be left in defense. Now, that's a huge force count if Russia tries to take back all 5 territories, putting out 16 units from what it has. So they're not going to do it. They're going to do the 3 territories, the most 3 critical territories, and that's the Baltic states, Eastern Poland, Bessarabia. And they'll use Leningrad here as just a basic defender, because they'll be blocking through any kind of blitz attack through, and enough build on a defense for any infantry attack to come through in Leningrad. So they're going to move and defend retake on counter these 3 territories. So then Germany follows up into those 3 territories again, right, with at a minimum of 6 more units of their own. So let's tally this up. Germany losses are 5 versus the Russian losses of 11. And so that attrition rate still stays at a 2-to-1 ratio. 5 to 11 is a little lower for the Germans as it started, but it's 5 to 11 in unit losses. Now, right up to the point where Germany is now going to eventually come into a territory in force. Germany is going to push into a territory in force, whether they're going to push into there or they're going to push all the way in through Western Ukraine. They will push in. At this point, Russia begins to make a tactical withdrawal because they need to. When Germany comes with force, it's coming with the ability to hold that force in defense. So the Russian Belarus group will be making a tactical withdrawal, and the Ukrainian group will likely be making a tactical withdrawal. And if not, it will be another patterned single block, but probably moving out anyway to group together. Now, what happens at this point is they keep utilizing their token infantry as blockers. The second group, they end up with a second defense drop 3 territories. They're not defending 5, they're dropping back to 3 defensive territories. Then they're using their token defense of 2 territories. The Soviets eventually find themselves parked back here inside of Moscow. And the numbers, as they break down, on average, the Russians will have lost 25 infantry. They'll lose more than that. They'll be sending in a couple artillery on some of these attacks. But they'll be losing 25 infantry versus the German attrition loss of 15 units, because Germany will be using their infantry and some of their artillery as well. So that is 25 to 15. That's a 10-unit swing. Now, anybody who got sat back here in Moscow on their tactical withdrawal because the German panzer push was just so strong, you know how critical 10 extra units in the front of the German armor units are. Because if the Russian defense cannot get into those armor units, you are doomed. So those 10 extra different units, it's not that you're defending with 10, is that the German units, they have 10 more that they, on average, than in blocking those German, in defense of those German tanks, so they can get a whole nother set roll for those armor units. Now, that isn't even the end of the attrition rate story, because it becomes compounded. And how does that become compounded? Well, it becomes compounded by our little Italian friends down south. They usually run the Italian, the Italians usually run the Italian can openers through the south, but there's no saying that they can't push those. Where's my yellow? That they couldn't be actually moved up and pulling them northward as well. So the point of it is that this gives German a higher infantry defense for all of its armored drivers, because the attrition losses that we initially talked about were not all happening to German units anymore. Some of those are getting soaked up by these Italian units. So the attrition rate of 25 to 15 is still there, but some of those hits have been taken by Italy, so there's more infantry units and artillery units in front of those armor units to push into Moscow. Now, if the statistics hold out, on average again, the fall of Moscow is actually high. Only if the statistical rolls fall towards the Soviets during all of these combats, then Moscow becomes more of a 50-50 proposition. And if that becomes more of a 50-50 proposition, as in with Germany, rather than pushing straight through and going to the heart of Moscow, if it becomes too much of a risk, whether they go south or whether up through Leningrad and then coming back down into Smolensk, it's not the end of the story, because Germany does not have to hit Moscow. in this event, they can just push around, go around to the outsides. And in the south, there's more opportunities to do things, whether you're going through Stalingrad or down in through Caucasus. But these are if the averages go well for Moscow, not against. The reason for the Katyusha trucks is that it gives Russia a more equal attrition rate to the Germans. Now, they are expensive at 5 IPCs apiece, but their cost ends up paying for how they work. So how do they work? What they're going to do is they're going to offer Russia the ability to have a closer battle on these withdrawal skirmish territory zones. And when you get things closer, the game gets much more intense. So we're going to put one down here in Belarus. We'll put two down in Belarus here. One boom, one here, and one down in Western Ukraine. So the can help with the defense of Bessarabia. So how do they work? Well, in this Bessarabia attack, the Katyusha truck will be offering on the very first defense cycle of the combat roll cycle of dice, will be offering 0.3 to this here. This truck will be offering, this truck will be going 0.3 in here, and this truck will be giving 0.3 to this one. This truck will give 0.3 to this. This goes to 0.3 to this. Now, both of these can't fire into this one because there's just one land unit. You can only have one land unit in here you can offer. That's in. So in the example, each one's getting 1. So it's 1.6 loss. Russia's going to give up 5 infantry, and Germany's going to lose 1.6. Now with the Katyusha trucks added, it actually adding 0.3 into each zone. 0.3 into here, 0.3, 0.3, and then 0.3 down in Bessarabia. So what that effectively does, it turns the 1.6 loss, 0.6 unit loss of Germany, and that turns that into 3.2. So it's rather than a 1.6 to 5, it's a 3 to 5 attrition rate loss, which makes things a hell of a lot better as Germany pushes and the more attrition, the more territory attacks happen, and as the pullback by the German or by the Russians end up becoming prevalent. And as they push back, they withdraw, they leave their units, they have their Katyusha rockets to offer an increase in defense. Now, this has an effect on Germany. There's a secondary effect on Germany. It's not just that they're going to go in with the same number of units, is that they are going to increase their units. So when Germany has to calculate this, they only have one defensive territory, or one unit here. So even though there's 2 Katyusha rockets there and 2 into Leningrad, all 4 don't get to fire. Only 1 land unit, so only one of these can fire in here in defense. But even in saying that, when they go with their 2 units, it is possible to suffer 2 hits against them in this territory. So Germany is going to have to take account of that, and most likely it's going to force them to increase their units. So rather than going with 2 units, they're actually going with 3 units. So same thing here. And so this increases the number of units that they have to use in order to open up these territories when they don't want to waste so many or put so many units in peril, because sitting right here are the units that can then kill them. So rather than kill single units or tool units, Russia can get a bigger hit for their buck. And the reason they can do that is that these Katyusha rockets offer that little bit of extra resistance, offer that attrition rate closer balance. And it's also more effective against, it's also just as effective against the Italians, because the Italians are usually coming through with less units, and they don't have a lot of units. They're often doing other things. There's not a lot of units coming through here. And so when they have to risk more of their units for a single territory in a chance because Katyusha's there, it becomes that attrition effect that helps the Russian player. Now, the Russian player is still getting pushed. Germany is likely still going to be sending some serious work this way, or possibly through the Navy and going up that direction. But that attrition rate stays closer. And as I said before, with a closer game, it's a more intense game.